decision was made to raise that child by 12 women as a human being. Although other people support me, and an ethical action is by definition ethical because it is an action in relation to other people and their being in the world, it's still up to me to realize my own personal destiny and become a person. Thus it is humanity and not just my community that is at stake in my ethical action. If I relate to another person in a manner that lives up to Ubuntu, then there is at least an ethical relationship between the two of us. And of course, if we relate to others around us in such a way, then we will help to create an ethical and by obvious extension, human community. There's a concept associated with Ubuntu which is called Sariti, which is the idea that we all live in a force field. And that, for instance, if somebody were to punch somebody else in this room and we all sat around and did nothing, that would affect the force field between us, and it would affect the psychic life of every single person. This is why, for example, under Zulu living customary law, there's an absolute command on you to rescue. There's no excuse for not doing everything you can to rescue a human being. Not just because it will make you somebody who should be ashamed and guilty, but because the kind of community you have created in your action or your refusal to action is one that will reverberate and reverberate and reverberate. Therefore, law schools, Zulu and Xhosa students simply cannot defend the Afrikaner Roman Dutch law or the Anglo common law or the American common law, in which you could walk by a 2-year-old if you had no relationship to him, and all you would have to do is reach down your arm and pull the 2-year-old up. Doesn't matter, you can let him drown. And so what happens in the courts called delict is student after student after student fails, because if they were to write the answer that this is acceptable, it would affect the entire community. Try explaining this to an Anglo-American professor who failed them. And when I said, no, they can't write that answer, because writing that answer is an ethical action. And if they take that ethical action, it's going to affect the entire community of this law school and get an absolute blank stare back. The law is the law is the law is the law. And I said, well, the Zulu law is that you have an absolute command to rescue. Why isn't the Zulu law taught in a law school at the University of Cape Town when it's the law of one of the biggest tribal affiliations in the country? But it's an interesting way where you can see the practice. Even writing a law school exam isn't just about you being a professional. It's about you doing something. When you write and you say something, that's an action that can affect the entire community. So they keep flunking, and comic novels keep being written about the University of Cape Town Law School. Magoba Moore brings together the different aspects of Ubuntu in his own profound and yet succinct definition. In one sense, Ubuntu is a philosophical concept forming the basis of relationships, especially ethical behavior. In another sense, it's a traditional political ideological concept referring to social political action. As a moral or ethical concept, it is a point of view according to which moral practices are founded exclusively on consideration and enhancement of human well-being, a preoccupation with human welfare. It enjoins what is morally good as what brings dignity, respect, contentment, and prosperity to others, to the self, and the community at large. Ubuntu is a demand for the respect for persons no matter what their circumstances may be. It is a political ideological sense. It's a principle for all forms of social and political relations. It enjoins and makes for peace and social harmony by encouraging the practice of sharing in all forms of communal existence. And some of my South African black students, therefore, responded very well to Nancy's notion of communism, because as a metaphysical idea in which the sharing of ourselves with others, and not just things, but ourselves with others, is very hard at the basis of ethical practice. And they're not nervous or frightened by the word communism, and the ANC once wasn't either. As a result, doing justice from Ubuntu does not make a rigid distinction between civil and socioeconomic rights. Yet one criticism of Ubuntu is it's not specific enough as an ethical or moral ideal to be used as a ground norm of a modern constitution, for example, that is South Africa, that gives form to the meaning of respect for the dignity. And one reading of Section 10 of South Africa, which says we have dignity and then we have the right to have our dignity respected, is that the ground norm of the entire Constitution is respect for the dignity of all others. Sometimes justified by justices on the Constitutional Court by Immanuel Kant, sometimes justified as an inversion of apartheid, and sometimes justified by some of the black justices on the Constitutional Court through Ubuntu. But Ubuntu as an ethical, political, and ideological concept is always integral to social bonds. Ubuntu, in a profound sense, encapsulates the moral relations demanded by human beings who must live together in complex relations of sociality. As we had seen, it implies both a fundamental moralization of social actions, and this moralization of social relations is forever changing. Thus, the actual demands of Ubuntu must remain dynamic, since Ubuntu is inseparable from both our present relations to people and also the relations that emerge between all peoples as societies shift, evolve, and transform through the zenith and nadars of events in human history. The aspirational aspect of Ubuntu is that we must strive together to achieve a public good and shared world so that we can harmonize our individual interests. It's the embeddedness of Ubuntu in our social reality that makes it a transformative concept at its core. But this transformation can never be far away from the moralization of social relations. In any society, there is always conflict, and people are inevitably wounding each other in their engagements. So there can never be an end to the dialogue about what justice means in any given context. In South Africa, there's been a traumatic disintegration of the relations between people. The particular devastation of an ongoing colonialism leaves a gaping wound in the social bond. For restoration or redemption to truly occur, we must acknowledge our inevitable exposure to that wound and the need for entering a healing process. At stake in our own engagement with each other in the new South Africa is our ethical humanity. For the wound is not abstractly present, but buried deep within each one of us. And this came out very strongly. I don't think she's here today, the young woman from South Africa who spoke about her own experience of 1994. Thus, we become human only in our relationships alongside and with other people. There is a call then to participate in the dialogue of what restorative justice might mean. Indeed, such redemption is always concerned with restoring the fractured ethical relations of the past within the temporality of the present, so as to allow for the possibility of a future life of justice. Such redemption, because by definition it is always yet to come, cannot be fashioned as an enumerated list of moral and ethical behavior. Rather, it adheres in allowing any community or persons to meaningfully pose questions about the challenges of humanism and dynamically negotiate mediations. For instance, Sampi Terabanj, Mahmoud Mandami, and myself have continued to call for the creation of a Justice and Reconciliation Commission to confront the complete failure of supply-side capitalist economics in South Africa to understand the causes of violence without excusing it. Such a commission aims to take seriously the more than 350 years of racialized capitalism that has rendered the majority of the population in South Africa in dire poverty and continues to do so, was institutionalized yet still functioning. The aim of such a commission was designed in a twofold manner that would educate beneficiaries of the exploitative system, and this came up yesterday too, when will the whites in South Africa be freed from their need to be guilty and ashamed of what it meant to be a beneficiary, not only of apartheid, but of 354 years of unfree black labor. Organize a national program for reparations, restitution, and above all, economic measures to grapple effectively with the completely devastating institutional effect of an internal system of colonization that continues to be imposed by the ANC, as the ANC actually imposed a structural adjustment program on its own people through the economic policy of growth, employment, and distribution.